Welcome to Acuity Acumen, the podcast where we illuminate leadership and inspire change. I'm Deanna Armstrong, an executive coach working with leaders in the life sciences and biotech industries to help them sharpen their leadership skills and drive real change. This podcast is proudly sponsored by Armstrong Walker Coaching and Consulting, where we empower leaders to reach their full potential. As AI continues to transform industries, the need for soft skills like self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and authentic leadership has never been greater. With CEO tenures at an all-time low, leaders today face high pressure to not only reinvent their organizations, but themselves. It's not enough to manage strategy. You need to connect authentically with your teams and lead with purpose. Each week, we'll explore actionable strategies to help you navigate this high-stakes environment with confidence. Remember to subscribe on YouTube and follow Acuity Acumen on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Now, let's dive into today's conversation. Welcome to Acuity Acumen, where we illuminate leadership and inspire change. I'm your host, Deanna Armstrong, and today's episode is brought to you by Armstrong Walker Coaching and Consulting. Today, we're diving into the world of healthcare innovation with a trailblazer in the startup ecosystem. Joining us is Dr. Hubert Zajicek, CEO and co-founder of Health Wildcatters, one of the nation's leading healthcare accelerators. In this episode, we explore Hubert's journey from practicing medicine to driving innovation, the role of mentorship in fostering groundbreaking startups, and how North Texas is becoming a hub for life sciences and biotech. Whether you are an entrepreneur, a leader, or simply curious about the future of healthcare, this conversation will inspire you to think bigger and lead with purpose. Let's get started. Welcome to the show, Hubert.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for accepting our invitation. And so we'll have a conversation in two parts. The first part, we'll talk about leadership and your role and the things that you've been doing in your career. And then in the second part, we'll get into the blooming biotech industry in North Texas. And I'm super excited to have you because I want to learn about money, how investors work, this accelerators, and all the great work you are doing in helping prepare these entrepreneurs to be successful in actually securing funding to fund their dreams.
All right.
Sounds like a plan.
I'm ready.
All right. So can you take us through your background and experiences and how you got here to work with Health Wildcatters?
Absolutely. Well, I think as many life journeys, you never know how it's going to go. I went to medical school in Austria, where I'm from, and there was really no other plan but to become a physician. My dad was a physician, and but as luck will have it, my future wife was from the United States, and she was also in medical school. So we both decided to live on the same continent for a change after a while.
That's a good idea.
And she actually tried out. She lived in Austria for a while during our college, her junior year in college, and had many opportunities to spend time in the States. And so as a result of that, we decided that to start our lives together here in the U.S. as she was going through the tail end of her medical school. And so I took on a research position, and then I became an NIH fellow, so I was on a research track, still with a goal towards becoming a practicing physician. And then along the way, I really enjoyed research. I was at UT Southwestern. I got some more grants. I joined the faculty, and I really enjoyed something that I had really not experienced in medical school so much. You had touched on it on here and there. Mm-hmm. And so did that for a while she was going through her residency. I didn't know that an MBA that I embarked upon eventually at SMU would pull me away from research and into commercialization and healthcare startups. But that's exactly what happened. So at SMU, I discovered entrepreneurship, fell in love with it, did the business plan competitions, ran the biotech and healthcare club, and just got immersed in a lot of things that, and this was the evening program, so it was the professional program. I still had my day job. But I really enjoyed that aspect. Out of that and some networking, I got my first job offer to join an incubator in Frisco, which it doesn't exist anymore, but it was a medical device incubator, and we'll get a little bit into that later, what the differences are. But in essence, learned a lot there, and then 11 years ago started Health Wildcatters together with 3 others. So
When you think about the skills needed, you 3 different roles, right? You had your medical student role and being a physician, but then you switched into research, which took another skill set, and then you went on to this healthcare and biotech incubator. What skills do you think made you successful in all 3 different roles?
Well, I mean, I think it's a little bit of so again, I started out as a physician and wanted to have impact on people. I love people, enjoyed that, saw my dad do that. And in research, as I said a second ago, I loved it. But over time, I got away from that impact. When you do basic science research, it's nobody else's fault. It's my own fault. I loved it so much, but I got away from patients. Anything that I would discover may in 20, 30 years turn into something, but nothing, maybe not even in my lifetime. And that's if I discover anything that's even worth making into a product of some kind or some seminal discovery. So really my MBA and the entrepreneurship almost brought me a little bit further back to having an impact in my own lifetime. And I know that doesn't quite come together yet, but now paired with healthcare startups, it does exactly that. I know that it's very, very hard to do a startup. I know it's even harder to do a healthcare startup. You need a lot of help. And so it's a lot of fun to help these healthcare startups become successful, play a role in there. I'll never take the credit for what they do. They are the brave ones going out there doing their entrepreneurship thing, but we're along for the ride. And so I get to use my skills, and also I get to see startups that have a true impact on people and people's lives. And now with over 100 startups accelerated and invested in, it really becomes almost anything you can think of gets touched by a startup that we have. And so that I get to see 10,000 people touched by an improvement or a cure that I got to play a role in helping along.
What are the key components of an accelerator program? Because I do know that a lot of times when you're the entrepreneur, sometimes you're not the best salesperson for your business or the best person to run the business. So is that kind of where your accelerator fits in teaching those type of leadership skills?
I mean, in a nutshell, you're spot on. The best innovator is not necessarily, or very rarely actually, also the best executor of that idea. Meaning, you invent something, you could be really, really awesome at that. That does not mean that you are an entrepreneur, and also that you don't need to be that person. These are very different skill sets. Also, it's sometimes totally inappropriate. You might be very successful. You're in a research lab. You're developing things, or you're a valuable physician in a subspecialty. And should you really give up all that to become an entrepreneur? The answer often is no. As a matter of fact, in most cases, it's probably no. It's very rare that the same person that is really good at inventing things also becomes the entrepreneur. It does happen, and there's some prominent examples, of course, but in most cases, that's not the way it goes. Usually we're talking to a minimum of 2-person team, and very often there's kind of the technical person, and then there's more the business person. And the technical person, that could be that inventor, for instance, that maybe becomes the chief technology officer later. And the other person is the businessy type of person that can really deal with the uncertainties of entrepreneurial life, that can tackle all those things, totally different skill set that you need to be successful in your entrepreneurial endeavors.
Okay. So your vision for Health Wildcatters?
Well, we have Health Wildcatters is a healthcare seed accelerator and fund. So we make an early stage investments. Some of the things that I believe in are we're in the middle of the country. We're working with startup entrepreneurs who are building it the right way. one of the very basic things we talk about during the program is there are no shortcuts. There may be great things that happen to you along the way. There may be wonderful things that happen along the way, but you're going to plan on building this the right way with the right value set, and keeping your head down and humbly going through this process, because there will be plenty of times when you need the strength to pull through stuff. The accelerator itself brings you the skill, the program just gets you an insight into all the little components that are involved with making a startup successful. That is not us having all the wisdom, it's us having lots of friends who are willing to share the wisdom. And we encourage our entrepreneurs to take on as many trustworthy partners along the way that can help them. Don't become the accountant. You got to be dangerous enough to know, how it works, but I don't need you to be the accountant. I don't need you to be the lawyer. Well, definitely not. Get professionals, please. It's laudable to learn, and you should know enough to know what you're in for and be able to make the decisions. But surround yourself with trustworthy people that can augment your team and take those burdens off of you. And so that's one of the things we teach. There are many things we do, but that's one of them. And it certainly helps for them to also see. We work in a cohort, so there's 10 different startups at the same time going through that process, so they see what others are doing, how have they solved this problem, how have they addressed it. Somebody might have a great patent attorney, the other person doesn't, and they're still struggling with that. Or one person has a really cool set of graphics, and the other person's sitting there with PowerPoint trying to figure it out. So there's just a lot you can, I could learn this from this person, or I can pick this up. It could be a referral, it could be just some tips, it could be hints, it could be setting the standards of where you need to be roughly, and also not worrying about some of the things that you have worried about all this time. Some people worry really a lot about the looks of it all, and sometimes we have to stop them. You know what? It's okay. It's fine. You can fiddle around with that later. For now, you need to get the message across. So this depends. They're all 10 different. Usually it's 10 startups, 10 different teams, 10 different sets of backgrounds, and so we're just helping them understand what is normal, what is customary, how do you fit into that, where are you outside the norm, where you're inside the norm. And that this has nothing to do with you not being your own best self. We're not trying to change persons. We're not trying to make you a different person. You're where you are because our process is very competitive, because you're exceptional already. There's no ifs and buts around it. The question is, how can we make you, supremely successful and help you take your burdens off of you?
Okay. So how do I find out? How do I apply? How do people apply to be a part of this program? And what are you looking for in the companies that you do accept?
Yeah. So we've been around for a while, so we're blessed now to get many hundreds of applications every year. This year we received almost 700, and then they apply. We have a website. There's an application form. You fill it out.
Do you have to do an essay?
No. So
YouTube video.
Yeah. So there's one, and a couple of things are important to me. It's if you're trying to get your message across quick, we encourage them to do a 1-minute video on the team and 1-minute video on the startup. That tells me a lot about the persons and about the team involved. It is not, I'm very adamant about this not being a tremendous burden. They're applying to something, as I just illustrated, the odds are relatively low. Yeah. This is like Harvard, so you may not get in, and that's okay. But I don't want you to, have to jump through a million hoops to do that. I want you to do the things that are going to help you solidify your own thoughts, going to help you with potentially applying somewhere else, going to help you with answering the questions that you need to have the answers for regardless. Yes, we need them too, but I'm not going to make you answer tailored long essay questions and put you through the hoops. We could, but I just don't believe in that. Now, some people still do that. They will still personalize it and write, well, we specifically want to apply to your accelerator because of this and this and this. And the stories are many. Just yesterday learned that one of our startups, I had just completely not put one and one together, was led by a brother of a person that participated in our hackathon half a year ago. And the brother told the entrepreneur brother, hey, you need to check it out. And sure enough, he applied, and sure enough, he made it. And I'd never put those two together. I'd never, there was even it gets worse, there was even a paper trail. There was an email. There was an email where somebody had made the introduction, but I had lost track of that story. So there are many, many different reasons. But anyway, so it's an application. As I said, I want you to answer the questions that you need to be able to answer to anyone who might be an investor, who might be a partner. So,
yes.
So answer those questions. You can cut and paste those later for other applications or for grants. So it's important to me that you do the things that you need to know, and it's not about us and trying to ingratiate yourself with us in any particular way.
So are there a lot of programs like this? Like I'm totally new to the
Yeah. So there are a number of accelerators in this country, and we're by no means the first. We are one of the first that are healthcare only.
Okay.
So accelerators, when you think about the big names, Techstars and Y Combinator and 500 Startups, this really started as software accelerators, which meant they took on software startups. And these software startups wouldn't necessarily be in healthcare. As a matter of fact, they most likely would not be in healthcare. And so the idea was to help young entrepreneurial teams with software startups and put them into a program where they get to know some other peers that do the same thing. So there are other programs that are specializing only on healthcare only, but there aren't that many. And also this is there's certainly not many around that have been able to replicate that for the 12th time now. We just finished our 12th cohort, 118th company. So there are not many programs at all that have been able to do that, especially in healthcare. So word gets around, and we've been able to increase the quality of the applicant pool as well over many, many years.
So what do you think makes you and your team successful?
Well, you got to have passion for what you do. So we preach to entrepreneurs, but we preach it from a position of we have a startup ourselves. The accelerator is not, there was no fairy that, waved the wand and said, you shall have $1 million or $2 million, and now you go and do your accelerator. Now, that does happen sometimes. These things exist. There are situations where an organization can decide to hire some people to run an accelerator, and they give them a bunch of money, maybe run it for 2 or 3 years. But then there's no base for that. If that team or organization or hospital, this group decides to stop, then the whole thing stops, the music stops, and it's over. Mm-hmm. In our case, we're backed by over 150 individual angel investors and family offices over all these years.
So what's an angel investor and what's a family office?
Yeah, so an angel investor is just simply someone, there's some SEC criteria, there's some rules around who can make these really risky investments. And it's not so much who can make them, it's around protecting consumers. So let me put it this way. The federal government believes that consumers should be protected from a con men. Mm-hmm. And then there are exceptions to that. What that means is that one of those is around angel investors. Basically what they've decided is if you make X amount of money or you have X amount of money, you know what? Knock yourself out. These are very risky. They're very much private transactions. But if you fit these criteria, you say you are, then go for it. And so this isn't about excluding people who don't have the money. It's protecting them from such rules. And so if you are, for instance, a publicly traded company, you would have to disclose all sorts of things. And here it's more like, if you guys want to invest and risk this, you're allowed to do it. So angel investors are generally people who have a little bit of money set aside. They need to fit into certain criteria, have a certain amount of network. Okay. It's much less than you would think, actually. And be willing to make a high-risk investment. And they're going to sign a waiver and say, I know this is a high-risk investment, and I may end up with a goose egg at the end. Okay. But just like everything in life, if you spread your risk, you can change, the risk profile quite a bit. If you make one bet,
yes,
but if you make 10, 20, 30, you're gonna have a little bit more of a cushion. Not all of those 30 will fail, most likely. It's still technically possible, but it's much less likely than a single bet. And so that's kind of behind an accelerator like ours, because our investors invest in a year, and in that year we may make 10 investments. So with us, they invest and are invested in 10 companies with one check. Okay. So that helps a little bit.
And it is, you can keep up with it more so too from the investor's point of view.
I mean, and I've made private investments myself, and when things don't go well, you don't get the call. You're the investor, and you just don't get the calls anymore.
Hey, we didn't meet our endpoints.
What's going on? So you start calling them, which is not a good thing. When things go well, you get all the reports, and it's all great, and then it gets quiet.
That's your cue.
With Accelerator, there's another twist to it, is that we, the Accelerator Fund, has invested in the startup, and the startup reports to the Accelerator Fund. The fund then reports to all the investors. Okay. So at an annual meeting, we can give them a snapshot. Here's how this year was 9 startups. These 9 startups have done over the last year. Here's what we believe your investment is worth. So all these things we can kind of make it a little bit gentler on the investor, because if you are to chase down 9 startups to try to figure out what's going on, and then lo and behold, collect information from them for taxes, that would be real work. And so those are a couple of things. And then also our investors, yes, of course, everyone expects a return, and so do I and my partners. So there's 4 of us. We also invest our own money in every single fund. So we're not telling someone to do something that we don't ourselves do with our own hard-earned dollars. And anyone that gives us a check, deserves the right that we treat that money with the utmost respect. Angel investors and family offices are both accredited investors, so they make these high-risk investments. What specifically in the accelerator comes to bear is that in healthcare, most of our investors don't want to just invest and hope that we make good investments. They also want to be involved. So almost all of our investors are involved as mentors. Those are successful people who have, run a successful business or successful career professionals. And they say, you know what, I'll invest, but I might be able to help someone. So put me in the rotation as a mentor. Okay. And so these very successful people then serve as mentors to our startups. And this is a really kind of not just your checkbook, but also your Rolodex, so to say, your address book, to help these startups. And that's part of the secret sauce. We have over 300 mentors that are willing to take the meeting. And if you know anything in entrepreneurship, it is that it is extremely difficult to get the meetings. It's extremely difficult to get anyone to do anything for you, because by definition you haven't figured it out. Right. So who gives me that half hour? Who is willing to jump on a 10-minute call with me to just see if there's anything that I can learn that they might already know, or a hint, or an investment, or an investor, or any kind of referrals? And so this is our startups in the course of over the course of 3 months, we'll probably meet 30 to 50 mentors individually in one-on-one meetings. And this doesn't stop after the end of the program. We continue to make introductions, and they continue to take meetings. And these are people who will take the call. That is huge. Just a chance to have a few minutes of someone's time. It just will not happen in most circumstances. And so these people, the mentors, basically have agreed. I will take the meeting. I don't agree to take it today. I'm not going to take a 5-hour meeting, but I'm willing to take the meeting in a reasonable amount, for a reasonable amount of time in the next few days, weeks, months. Everyone's different, and not everyone's at the right spot to take the meeting at this moment. But that's a huge gift. And it's really, really difficult to replicate that. And these are the very same people that made an investment either in you or in prior cohorts. They feel strongly about making an impact in health innovation, having an impact on people. I mean, these are all healthcare startups. They can touch all of our lives. So not just are they expecting a good return, which I do as well, they're also getting to help these startups, which is their own investments. And they also get to see, hey, if I can help them, the thing that I invested in and helped gets to have an impact. And
Right.
this may be one of your loved ones that needs that treatment or that device or the software that makes a difference in their life. So it's a really fun thing to see work out.
And I think that's a testament to you and your team and the culture that you've created, because even though you're looking at life-saving products or startups, there are a lot of them out there, but they don't have that secret sauce, like you said. And so that's probably showing the caliber of companies that you have coming through and the caliber of the people. So that's amazing to have that culture and that support, especially if you're thinking about it from a startup's perspective. So I see why you got 700 applications this year. Another thing I was wondering about is, I know that you also work a lot with women startups in healthcare that are led by women. Can you tell us a little more about that? How did you get that niche?
Yeah, so we have started probably 5 years ago. We had our first Women in Science and Health hackathon. And then out of those, we had 2 hackathons. Out of those grew Women in Science and Health Network. And the idea there was simply to open up peer-to-peer opportunities, have successful female entrepreneurs speak to people who are not there yet, people who haven't made the career jump or have never considered a career in entrepreneurship. And it's certainly not for everyone, but the few that choose or are considering a path like that, they need to see that it's doable. They need to see and understand that there are people like them that have successfully done it.
You have to see it to believe it.
Yeah,
right?
you got to see to believe it. And then also to mentor them. So we have in this group mentors, successful female entrepreneurs. And by the way, we have never excluded men from that group because it turns out they need just as much help. It's called Women in Science and Health. And so that's been an interesting side to our operation. And it really shines a little bit of a light on the things we do besides the investment side. So we've talked about the investment side, and we've got these investors, 150 of them, and I would call this the engine that makes it all run. That's the capitalism that allows it. It's the generosity of 20, 30 investors who are willing to risk their hard-earned money to invest in something that will hopefully turn into something and have an impact and also return. So this is no ifs and buts. We picked the 10 best. That's the game. But with that rocket fuel, you add, with that machine, you can add rocket fuel to it, and that is our sponsors. So we have organizations from as diverse as law firms, accounting firms, banks, to universities like UT Arlington, UT Dallas. We've also had UT Southwestern prior, or hospital system like THR or Dell. So all sorts of different organizations for different reasons want to help us do more in the community. And so these sponsors really allow us to do things in the community, like running the hackathons, the Women in Science and Health Network. By the way, that network now, with the help of an SBA grant, has expanded to 7 college campuses. So each of those college campuses now has satellite groups run by students and faculty at these universities to do the very same thing that we do for just anyone in Dallas. So it's really kind of grown. And then various other things. We run investment conferences, educational seminars, we have speakers. So all the community work, we run the healthcare tracker for the Dallas Startup Week. We're involved in a lot of things, and that's a gift from our sponsors to allow us to do that in the community. Another one of our sponsors is Light Hill Philanthropies. I don't want to leave out anyone, but there's many more.
Send me an email. We'll tag them all in.
No, it's
Yes.
it's a great blessing. And then we bring in volunteers. A lot of people want to be involved in these efforts. They want to help and be involved in some of our initiatives, and we welcome that. And so with that combination, a lot of things can happen far beyond the investment and the impact it can have in our community in the region.
That's fantastic. And that all, but you started with your core business, and this stuff just organically started happening.
These are little things that happened.
Yes.
If it was for the right reasons, it was the proper thing to do. And especially if nobody else did it, we thought there's a gap and we can play a role in that. The entrepreneurial thing to do is to just do it and not just wait for somebody else to do it, right? So we did. We also started a chapter of the Society of Physician Entrepreneurs, which is a totally different group. These are physicians, nurses, healthcare professionals that want to invent something, but maybe they aren't the right ones to also commercialize it. But they need help in figuring that out. They need others to talk to. They need inspiration as well. And those people are, very smart, highly educated caregivers in our community that see problems and are discovering a way to solve that, and they need to help to implement that. And it may not be right for them to quit their jobs, which are often good jobs. They also fulfill a role in the community. But at the same time, somebody's got to help them to bring that to fruition. And so this group is really exposing physicians and other healthcare providers to opportunities in the entrepreneurial world and connecting the right people.
Okay, so it's that connection.
Yeah, that's just
they're not taking that solution and then implementing it, but they're kind of holding their hand and guiding them.
They may, and some may start their own thing.
Okay.
It's just there. It's. I know that sounds like a group. Oh, how would they need any help? Well, it turns out they do. Physician education actually has very little to do with business, and the skills involved in starting a business are not what you get trained for in medical school at all. So there's a reason for that, and that's a national organization. We just run started and run the Dallas chapter.
Yeah. But that's key though. I know Dr. Snyder and I had talked about that a few weeks ago, or probably a few months ago now, about how a lot of physicians, they do, like for the Texas Medical Association, they actually do a seminar every year to teach leadership skills to physicians, because that business, like a business academy to help with that skill set, because that's not something that you do learn in medical school. And even a lot of folks like you, they go back and get their MBAs. I see a lot of now MD, MBAs out there, again, learning how to operate your business, because healthcare is a business.
Whether we like it or not, it is.
It is.
Yeah, when it comes down to, especially to very critical situations, the United States has, in most cases, the best solutions. Very expensive, but the best cutting-edge solutions to some of the worst afflictions. So,
and a lot of those solutions are all about innovation. So we're in the age of machine learning, artificial intelligence. What role does that play in the types of companies, the startups that you're sponsoring, first of all, I guess, and then also just in general, how has it changed your role?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we have the startups we take on, those 118 that I've spoken about, are in various areas. So there are software startups, there are medical devices, there are pharma companies, tech-enabled services, healthcare consumer goods, diagnostics, so many different buckets. But health IT or digital health plays a big role, and of course a good number of them are deploying artificial intelligence. So we do have a good number of AI companies in our portfolio. We see a lot of that as well all around us. And AI will undoubtedly play a role in many aspects of our healthcare in the future. And I would say I'm just an optimist. So in my case, I think in a positive way, in an intuitive way, in a way that we will like, not for us to have to be afraid of. But certainly both sides exist. We all know there's also a dark side to it all. But along those lines, I think about a robot that, for instance, Elon Musk has developed, and just think about this very agile robot that could have a conversation with you and then You just sit here and you say, well, yeah, I'd really like a cup of coffee. And, off he walks, or she, I don't know if we've decided what gender it walks, and brings you a cup of coffee. So what's involved? There's a lot of AI involved with that for this robot to pick up on what you need. So I see us having such amenities, and 10 years ago we would have thought, we need a coffee making robot that goes and makes the coffee. And no, this is about but the same along the lines of caregiving. Anyone that's on and has ever been a caregiver, it's an extremely tough job. It is gut-wrenching, it is emotional. But what if there were a gentle soul along for the ride that can help the caregiver defray some of those things? Just, I'm transferring dad to another bed and let the robot make the bed and clean it all up. Just simple things. So I see a future where these things are possible. And whenever I say this is robots, but still all the intelligence behind it and the decisions that are being made for this to happen are incredibly important. So that's just one little niche that happens to be, I think a little bit easier to explain because it involves robots,
right.
But that could make all of our lives so much easier. Think of any scenario where a nurse has to lift someone. There's so many back injuries. I've seen so many startups that are trying to help nurses and caregivers in a scenario of transferring patients, and they're all out there. Eventually, though, somebody will pick up that person and something's going to happen and they're going to have a back injury.
Right.
And that's just, it's going to happen. So, but if there were once again, a intuitive solution like that could assist, then those things don't have to happen. So I see just a lot of really interesting things coming down the line, and maybe the robot scenario just helps us think about that intelligence, obviously on disease prediction, disease treatment, best treatment plans, individualization of treatments, and any kind of preventive measures. You need a lot of statistics and data accumulated, and then you really need to unleash AI on this data to discern things that we haven't even thought about. And that's what I think we will discover as well. It just will assist us in any conceivable way to make life better and the quality of life as well.
I think it was an event I went to last night. They were talking about the rapid pace of adoption. It went from the internet took 30 years, something took 20, the cell phone took 20 years, and now AI is going to be 10 years or less, where it's pervasive. Right? The adoption curve is already, and we've been in AI for quite a while. People just didn't realize it. Yeah. So it didn't just come around in 2024, whatever year this is, but it's been there for a while. But that adoption is really coming. And I do believe that, I think sometimes people are afraid of artificial intelligence, but it's here and it's here to stay. And you need to figure out, how do you leverage it, no matter what your role is? How do you make it work for you?
Yeah.
And then also, I think the other part, like you said, the bad part is really getting the regulations around artificial intelligence and making sure that we're doing the right things. And I think it's coming, right? It may be a long wait. Instagram just decided to do Instagram for teenagers a million years later. You should have come out with that, but at least now there may be a generation that will actually go on Instagram for teenagers. Who knows? But we know that this is coming. We need to prepare for it and really looking into the future and how do we tackle this, because it's here and it's here to stay. I think of Shark Tank, and they're investing in money in companies because they're expecting a return on their investment. And that's pretty much what you're doing, just for healthcare, correct?
Yeah, that's unbeknownst to me, my daughters have been running around telling everyone that I'm doing Shark Tank for healthcare startups. That's how they have explained it to all their friends.
Okay, yeah, that's what I. Okay.
What does they were kind of stumped what to say. Tell people what I do, and so that's what they. And I don't know how many years they've told everyone that. So apparently, all these kids that they know, that's the explanation they got, which is not a bad analogy. On the investment side. When you make a private investment, you can invest in real estate, you can invest in oil and gas, and in each of those cases you have depending, there's a kind of a sliding scale, some predictability on when you will get the return. So real estate and oil, there's some prediction. You can predict a lot of it, not always, but very often. You could also invest, of course, in something even safer, like a savings account or a CD, and then you know exactly what you're going to get. So as you scoot over to the side of the high risk, also high return spectrum, what you get is more and more risk, which means not every one of those investments is going to turn anything. Some of them may turn into complete goose eggs and go away. And so it's kind of high risk, but also the rewards get much bigger. You get your CD with 4% here. Well, a startup may triple your money in 3 years. I mean, that's huge. So in healthcare, though, as you go down up that risk curve, in healthcare, you get two additional things. Number one, you get what I alluded to earlier, a kind of an additional benefit. You get the benefit of knowing that this invention could very well touch your lives or the life of somebody else. And I mean, that's not a cash return, but it's usually a good motivator, especially for people that have a career in that industry, that feel like that's something they want to do. The other thing that happens in healthcare, it takes longer. So when I talk about these 2-3 year returns, there's no way you could predict that when you make an early stage investment in a healthcare startup. So you're going to have more risk. It's going to take longer for a return. And as an angel investment, it is totally liquid, which means you can't just show up a year later and say, you know what, let's give me my money back. It's gone. It's just been invested. It's not returnable. So on the other hand, though, these investors, or us on behalf of them, we buy a stake in that company. We might own 5% of that company. To start with, you usually own 8%. But over time, it becomes a lesser percentage. So then that company sells, and now let's say it's a $100 million exit, and we own 5%. Well, 5% gets sent down. My whole fund was $1 million. That would be a very good scenario. And everyone gets 5 times their money back just from one investment. That would be an exceptional return. So there's definitely return expectation, but they also know, my investors do, and so do I. And then not all 9 this year will do this. Some will have smaller exits, some will have bigger exits. Stuff happens. Probably some will fail. Don't tell them that I said that on camera.
We'll take
but
that
it can happen. No, this should stay. It can happen. And but us, just like in venture capital, you need a few to succeed, and you need to believe in all of them and give them everything you can to help them be successful. But ultimately, it can't be all of them. It's against the odds for all of them to succeed.
Right. A lot of investors, especially in Texas, they invest in oil and gas. They invest in real estate. You mentioned software. But I feel like there's a little aversion to investing in healthcare companies. If you were talking to investors, your investor colleagues out there, what would you tell them as to why healthcare is a great place to invest?
Well, I'll speak next week at a big event with family offices, and like you said, the typical investments are real estate or oil and gas or something predictable things, and there's nothing inappropriate about them. I think if you this isn't an investment show, and I'm not an advisor, but people that put together a portfolio of things they want to invest in, they might own their house, they might have another piece of real estate, they might invest in commercial real estate or in something else. There will be a sliver where they say, well, what about high growth, super risky deals? And that's where they end up in angel investment deals or in venture funds. And in that subcategory, they enjoy that they can know that there's some help along the way. So they don't just invest and then have to hope for the best, but in our case, they have 10 startups and they invested in several. So if one of them falls off the cliff, there's still the other 8 in this year's case, for instance, that can have a shot at it. Mm-hmm. So as far as the real estate or oil comparison goes, that's just on that risk scale, that's just a little bit more predictable. And a lot of people have made their money that way, and so why not do what you know works? And so I don't find anything wrong with that. It would be nice if more people would say, and a little bit of my money I set aside for high risk, high reward investments in my community, in my region, in healthcare. And that shouldn't be a charity case. That needs to be because it works and because I want to be diversified. And the one thing in healthcare that I like is that it's not going to go out of fashion.
We want to live,
and I'm
live
not saying
long,
that real estate or oil are
lives.
going out of fashion, but they have a very cyclicality to it. I mean, real estate goes down, and oil prices go up and down. All of a sudden, we're drilling, we're not drilling, and again, anyone that invests for the long term knows that over the long term it can go. But in some of those industries, you go in, and it needs to be the right time to make money. You go in at the wrong time, the thing goes bust. So healthcare, just in general, I mean, I think, okay, is this a bad time to invest? Is this a good time to invest? Some of the best investments have been made when there wasn't a lot of capital available and startups were started. In some cases, it was when there was a lot of capital. Healthcare, though, if you're tackling a problem that, is a burden for humanity or for people, who's going to say, oh, we don't want that? This prosthesis, this works better than the other ones. Forget about that one.
Right.
Or cure for Alzheimer's. Now next, let's do some oil and gas. Okay, there's a place for everything, but I think there's just an innate understanding that innovation in healthcare is a must. It's not a nice to have. A nicer house, nice to have. More energy, nice to have. Not always. You need a basic amount, but healthcare, if there's a way for something to be better that can reduce suffering, that can help people, there's just not a lot of people who say, oh, let's skip that one. Let's invest in the newest, Tickle Me Elmo doll and make a bunch of money. So there's both sides to it. I think there's a bit of a mission to it too. But there's also the assurance that healthcare will not go out of favor. It will always be in need of better solutions to reduce human suffering.
I like that. But one of the things that I wanted to do with this podcast is to educate people on what biotech is and the different parts of the ecosystem that it takes to bring this to fruition in Texas. And one of those constituents, I hope, are investors, because I think education is a big piece too. Because when I think about healthcare or biotech, I just think about drug development. But several other incubator companies that you talked about, they're doing all types of things. So healthcare isn't just developing the next medicine or even the next device. It's also the technology behind it, solving solutions. Like you said, how do you transfer a patient from one bed to the next or from one spot to the other, and all of the innovation that can come around that. So that the software as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's huge to be able to get that message out there, because there may be people like me that are just thinking, oh, drug development. But my last question to you will be, when you look back, when you retire in however many years, what would you like for your legacy to be as it relates to being a part of this blooming healthcare and life sciences biotech sector here in North Texas?
Interesting question. So I haven't thought about it. I'm still building and trying to make things happen. I think that the things that I want to convey to entrepreneurs and people who, have that idea that maybe I could do it. First of all, I was not your guy. I was shy. I was not educated at all. Yes, technically I had a really good technical education, as a physician, but it is just not the recipe for success on the entrepreneurial spectrum. So first of all, you can do it. I know that sounds weird. If I can do it, you can do it. You can. Number two is simply along the way to, entrepreneurship is about the many things along the way that could go wrong and how to deal with them. Yes, there's a whiz-bang idea, maybe. Sometimes there is not. But if you focus on the impact you can have and where you can go, needless to say, you need to dot all the I's and cross the T's along the way, but you will want to have that effect on people with having mentors around you that can help you and be entrepreneurial. So on the legacy side, it's more around looking up, later on and saying there are a lot of people walking around that are building startups the right way, that do it without shortcuts, that have an impact in the world. What I do now when I'm not using my hands as a physician is to use them with startups. I would love to see millions of people helped, and I played a small role along the way. And of course, of many people replicating that and getting that idea that it really just takes a good idea and then a lot of hard work to do it. Whether you were a high school dropout who I had dinner with 2 days ago, or a PhD, MBA, MD, whatnot, that is just learning how to be an entrepreneur. It doesn't matter. That is a very flat world in entrepreneurship land. As long as you're humble enough to do it, that's what I want to convey. And I think our country has still the best opportunities for an entrepreneur to do these things, to actually go for it and try it out and be allowed to be successful, no matter what your background is, ethnicity or gender. It really is heartwarming to see all different people from different walks of life come to us and through our accelerator program become successful. It is always their success, not ours. We play a small role in there, and we're proud and honored to do that. But to see that happen and play out, no matter who you are or where you're from, I'm an immigrant. So I hope that legacy will continue.
Thank you. And I hope it does too. I think one of the key things you said was the impact. So thank you for the work that you are doing at Health Wildcatters and the impact that you're already having on thousands of people, and definitely a whole bunch of entrepreneurs and mentors, and bringing that sub-ecosystem together, which is huge. There are a lot of folks, like you said, that are not able to replicate that. And I really think that's because of the heart of you and your co-founders and what you're doing today. And we appreciate you sharing your wisdom here today on Acuity plus Acumen. Thank you for tuning into today's conversation with Dr. Zajicek today. We hope that you found something that you could take away and implement in your own world. And I love what he just wrapped up with. It doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter your education level. It doesn't matter your gender or your race. You have the ability to be an entrepreneur and to work hard, and your dreams can come true. Until next time, take care. Thanks for joining us on Acuity plus Acumen. I hope you found today's episode filled with insights that inspire change and drive your leadership forward. In a rapidly evolving industry, your role as a leader is crucial. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify to catch our upcoming discussions. This podcast is proudly sponsored by Armstrong Walker Coaching and Consulting. Are you ready to elevate your impact? Reach out for personalized coaching or to explore Acuity plus Acumen Leadership Institute. Together, we can illuminate leadership and inspire change. Keep leading boldly and making an impact. Until next time.